This is a video for meet number 5. The first category is algebraic fractions. And here's a quick, well, maybe not too quick, video helping you out with that. The key to algebraic fractions is the common denominator, for sure. And if you're not experienced at taking something a quadratic like that and factoring it into two binomials, you could have some difficulty, but maybe I can give you some pointers. Typically, if they have binomials in the denominator, they will also show up in the quadratic. Let me show you what I mean. You know, when you add or subtract fractions, you need to have a common denominator. So this has x minus 1 as a denominator, this has x minus 2 as a denominator, and this one factors. And again, this is where if you don't have experience, it'll take some time to get some practice with it. This one factors actually into x minus 2 times x minus 1. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2, and negative 2 plus negative 1 is positive 3. So that is the common denominator because it has this part, it has this part, and this has both of them. So we need to rewrite these two fractions over here to have the same denominator. How do I do that? Well, this one needs to be multiplied by the x minus 1. So, if you don't mind, the numerator in the very beginning is x plus 1. And there's a minus sign. The numerator here is x plus 1, but I need to multiply x plus 1 times x minus 1 in order for this to have a common denominator. It's kind of like, how do you get 3 6 to be a certain amount of twelfths? Well, you got to multiply by 2. When you multiply by 2, you got to multiply that by 2 to get that 6 twelfths is the same as 3 6. So it's the same idea. So I need to multiply the top and the bottom by x minus 1. So this is kind of painful. I have x plus 1 times x minus 1. That'll be the new numerator for this piece. Then there's the equal sign. And I have 3 in the numerator. But in the denominator, I have x minus 1. I need x minus 1 and x minus 2. So I need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by x minus 2. Now you might say, you didn't write the denominators. Well, there's a reason for that. Kind of like if you have 2, I don't know why I keep going 6. 2 6 plus 3 6 equals x 6. It doesn't really matter because the denominators are all the same. 6, 6, and 6. So all you really have to ask yourself is 2 plus 3 equals 6. And 2 plus 3 is 5. So you know x is 5. I'm using the same philosophy here. I have this one over x minus 2 and x minus 1. I have this one over x minus 1 and x minus 2. And this one is also over x minus 1 and x minus 2. So I don't have to write the denominators anymore. I can just write the numerators, and that's what I've done. So I have x plus 1 minus this mess equals that mess. Let me simplify a little bit. X plus 1 minus, you may want to click pause and figure this out on your own, but I'm going to distribute the x times the x, and the x times the negative 1, and the 1 times the x, and the 1 times the negative 1. Anyways, that whole mess comes out to x squared. The middle term, actually, you get minus 1x plus 1x, so it comes out to 0. And then the final term is positive 1 times negative 1, so that's minus 1. Notice I use brackets. That happens a lot. You need to be aware of this minus symbol is for the whole expression, so I put the brackets around it. I'll get back to that in a minute. Finish this off, go back to the blue. This one's a lot easier. 3 times x minus 2 is 3x minus 6. Okay, now let me distribute the negative sign. So I have x plus 1 minus x squared. Minus times minus 1 is plus 1. And that equals 3x minus 6. Okay, Now you're going to solve that quadratic equation. Why do I call it a quadratic equation? It's a quadratic equation because we have the x squared. So whatever skills you want to use to solve a quadratic equation, I have run out of space, so I'm going to have to go to the next page. Let's see if I can do that. Can I go to the next page? I need to add a page, but that's not the page I want. Oh boy, teacher fail right now. Let's see, how do I add a page? Here we go, I did it. Problem is I don't remember what I had. All right, let me get rid of this. Let me oh boy. I like to have the x squared be positive, so I'm going to add it to both sides. So it's going to be x squared is going to be over here. And I already have 3x over here, but I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So I'm actually going to have plus 2x over here. And then everything else, let's see what I got. I got plus 1 and a plus 1, which makes it plus 2. But then to bring it over here, I need to subtract 2. When I subtract 2, oh boy, I get negative 8. So on the next page, I'm going to write x squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. I didn't really write that to start with. I moved all of these pieces over to the right. And now I have a quadratic equation. X squared plus 2x minus 8. So x squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. And in Chapter 2 in Algebra 2, we learned about solving quadratic equations. So if you're in Algebra 2 and you've covered it, good news for you. If not, you can use a quadratic equation. I'm going to factor it because that's usually faster. Factors of negative 8, that when you add them, you get positive 2. And again, we can do some skills on this if you want to drop by a practice of sometime. It would be plus 4 and minus 2. Because positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And positive 4 plus negative 2 is positive 2. Then I use the zero product property, and I get from this that x equals negative 4, or x could equal 2, because those are the two values that could make, negative 4 is the value that can make that come out to 0, 2 is the value that can make that come out to 0, and I need that or that to be 0 in order to get 0. So these are the two answers, but they're not. Yeah, they're not. Because then, after you do this happens a lot in these type of problems, you need to test it out to see if this creates dividing by 0, or maybe this creates dividing by 0. So let me go back a page to the original fractions. Is it okay for this, or this to have 2 as an answer? What do I mean by that? Let's look at the denominators. Oh yeah, right here. If this is a 2, I would have 2 minus 0, 2 minus 2, which is 0. That's dividing by 0. You can't have it. So it turns out this is not one of the answers. Gonzo. There is a chance that this is also not an answer. So let's take a check. Let's take a look. Could I have negative 4? If you have negative 4 in here, it comes out to negative 5. That's okay. I'm just looking to see, will I create dividing by 0? And I already know this one, the 0 was a 2. And I already know this one is those two combined. So I think negative 4 is okay. Turns out, yes, it is. Negative 4 is the only answer to this question. Now, I was going to do another problem, but holy smokes, it would just take. I'm going to do some work with it to show you a couple of more strategies. How do you tell what the common denominator is here? They both have an x. It's just a binomial. They both have an x in it, so this factors into x times x plus 1. I'm going to run out of space very quickly. This one here, you might not recognize, but it's the difference of squares, so that factors into x plus 1, x minus 1. So if you've taken Algebra 2 recently, then this stuff maybe is familiar to you. And then this one factors into x times x minus 1. So those are the three denominators all factored. Now, so what's in my common denominator? I need to have an x. I need to have an x plus 1. I need to have an x plus 1. Well, I already got an x plus 1. Okay, let me not worry about that. I need to have an x minus 1. Yep, I don't have an x minus 1 yet. I need to have an x. I already got an x. I need to have an x minus 1. I already got an x minus 1. Okay, so we got it. That, and that are the common denominators, or the common denominator. And then you would have to look at the numerators and multiply everything by whatever's missing. What do I mean by that? Like this one here, I got to multiply 1 times whatever's missing. Well, this already had the x and the x plus 1, so I just need to multiply x by the 1 by x minus 1. Oh boy. So I have 1 times x minus 1. Then I have a minus sign. 4 times, now what is this missing? This was x plus 1 times x minus 1. It's missing the x. So I have to multiply the 4 by the x. That's not so bad. Running out of space here. Then I have the plus sign and a 1. Now what is that missing? That was this thing here, which is missing the x plus 1. So I have to multiply that by the x plus 1. This is not an equation to solve. There's no equal sign. It's perform the indicator operations. So you're just combining like terms. We got to have the common denominator, and then we distribute the 1, distribute the 4, distribute the 1, combine like terms to get a final answer. I don't want this video to take too long, so I'm kind of stopping here. This is the toughest meet, so you may want to drop in during some Laker time or after school to do some practice. But that's it for video number 1, for category number 1, for math meet number 5.